And so, but yeah, so she was watching the news and freaking out because she thought I was in a flood. And so, yeah, definitely national news.
So what really warms my heart about that story, Cornelia, is that your mom called. You
Hmm.
know, at any age, our moms still care and
Hmm.
check on us. And
Exactly
so
right.
I think that is a great sentiment to start the day. But you're right. I live in the western half of the state, so we could have used some of that rain. We're still
Yeah.
definitely in a drought area. Sarah, I love your glasses.
Thank you. I was feeling lazy today, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're groovy. I love them. They just they're so you. So, all right, we are coming up on 9. Lindsay will continue to let people in, and then we'll just get started. Okay, well, I am going to officially welcome our new and returning panel members to the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel Committee. My name is Melissa Schoenberger, and I serve as the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund Early Childhood System Specialist, and also serve moving forward as your chair for the day and our upcoming year. So really is a pleasure and an honor to be here with everyone this morning. And I look forward to having some really good conversation over the next year. Lindsay, do you want to move to the next slide? I just want to remind everybody that this is a remote meeting. Um, and then all of our materials and supports documents can be found at the panel meetings webpage, which my partner today, Lindsay O'Ryan from our KU Backbone Support, will be going over with you guys, and love the landing page that we have set up to make sure that you have access as panel members to all of our resources. When you do come off mute, please clearly identify yourselves before you begin speaking. Wanting to remind everybody that our meeting is being live streamed today on our Cabinet YouTube page, and that we really want to make sure that everybody recognizes, and becomes familiar with who you are. But anybody participating outside of this meeting also has an opportunity to understand who we are and where we serve and where we sit in this early childhood ecosystem. We ask that you use the raise hand feature and then remind everybody that this is a meeting that is must be in compliance with the Kansas Open Meeting Act. So we will not be using our chat feature. This also ensures that we're meeting accessibility compliance, that everybody can hear what we're saying, and we're being very transparent. So I really love that component to these meetings. Lindsay, to the next slide, please. Today's agenda was sent out to you earlier this week. We're going to be going over a welcome, which we're right in the midst of right now, an approval of the July and agenda June meeting minutes. Thank you to anybody who had any edits to the June meeting minutes. Kansas Open Forum. Kansas Open Forum does not have anybody today that reached out to the cabinet, and particularly the panel, to share any information. Moving forward, if we don't have anybody for the Kansas Open Forum, I will come prepared with something to share. The intent of the Kansas Open Forum is not to solve issues. It's to really hear what's going on in Kansas. And so we will be highlighting any type of news story, anything that we hear in newsletters also across the nation that impact the work in Kansas. And so we will ensure that we plug in if we don't have anybody joining us, that we will make sure that you have information. And it's not a time that we expect to solve issues, but really to enlighten panel members of, again, what's going on in Kansas. We're going to go over the panel norms and go over the overview of the procedures that were sent to you this week. We're going to have a soft launch and an introduction into our work groups. And then again, Lindsay's going to share with us the panel communications, any systems updates, and then we're going to have an introduction. We did have two of our panel members that were slated to do an introduction today have had family emergencies and other commitments that we just found out about in the last 24 hours. So think about if you would like to come off mute later on and introduce yourselves. We're asking for 2 volunteers as we move forward, and hopefully we will adjourn right at 10:30. So 2 action items that we have for today are like I said, the approval of the July agenda. So may I have a motion to approve the July agenda by a panel member?
I move that we approve the July agenda.
Can you introduce yourself?
Christina Small with Salina Area United Way.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
This is Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and I second the motion.
Thank you, Brenda. And then may I have a thumbs up for all those in favor of accepting? Thank you. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the June minutes. May I have a motion to approve our June minutes?
This is Patty Peschel, and I make motion to approve the June minutes.
Thank you, Patty. May I have a second?
Cornelia Stevens, and I second.
Thank you. May I have all those in favor, a thumbs up? Thank you. And then all those opposed, same sign. Okay, we are cruising right along and taking care of business. Again, wanted to pause for anybody who's listening outside of our panel group that, welcome any insights, opportunity to share, join in the Kansas Open Forum. There is a link within the Cabinet's website and speaks to the Kansas Open Forum comment section. And we welcome anybody joining the panel group on any of our regular cadence meetings to share. So opening that and throwing that out there to anybody who would like to join us. Okay. And that being said, it is my pleasure to welcome the Cabinet's Executive Director, Melissa Rooker, who is going to share some insights on why we are all together today and what she hopes to happen through our work over the next year. So, Melissa, I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and welcome to all of our panelists, both new and returning. We're about 50-50 split in terms of those of you who are returning to continue participating in the early childhood recommendations panel, and 50% of you who are brand new this year. So welcome to all, and thank you to those who have been with us for at least 1 year. Some of you have been with us since we were created 5 years ago. So for all of you, we appreciate you taking the time to serve the state and the early childhood ecosystem in this capacity. For those of you who are new, I wanted to take just a moment to describe what the panel is and where it fits in our universe. This was created as part of Executive Order 2002, issued by the governor in 2020, which named the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund to serve as the designated state early childhood advisory council in compliance with the federal Head Start law. The federal law lays out a series of subject matter experts and specific entities that need to participate in the advisory council work. And our governing board for the Children's Cabinet does not include all of those areas of expertise. So the executive order addressed that by creating the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel to serve as a standing committee to the Kansas Children's Cabinet. So your role is to do the work within the context of the recommendations panel. Sometimes there will be topics that are appropriate, you know, those of you representing other state agencies and specific programs and partners around the state might be able to say, oh, now that we've identified this, this is something we can take back and we can take care of and keep this progress moving in the direction that will benefit the programs and families that we serve. In some cases, there may need to be a formal recommendation brought to the Children's Cabinet. It's important to remember your job is not to recommend that the cabinet do a certain thing. We're asking that you think in terms of the ecosystem. The cabinet, in its official role as Early Childhood Advisory Council, would be the voice, the entity that makes a recommendation to the ecosystem regarding change. So in the past, we have adopted an approach to the transition into kindergarten. A transition kindergarten transition kit was created by the work of this panel, so that it was made available publicly, so that communities across the state and any organization involved in the work of kindergarten roundup and connecting families to services and enrollment in kindergarten, in that context, wanting to make sure that transition is smooth for the children involved and their families. This panel helped with the promulgation of an update to the Kansas Early Learning Standards, and that was brought to the Children's Cabinet in its role as advisory council and adopted. The State Board of Education likewise adopted those early learning standards, so that universally across the ecosystem, there is a uniform set of developmental standards that people can look to, not confined to the unified school district system. So those are just two examples of the type of recommendations made that if you think of the advisory council as the good housekeeping seal of approval, that is the role our cabinet plays. You all are really the workhorses that drive the work forward. So we appreciate the expertise that all of you bring to bear. I would be remiss if I did not thank and recognize Cornelia Stevens for her leadership over the last 3 years as our chair. Cornelia is one of our original founding members of the panel and agreed to step into the role of chair and served us well over the last 3 years. So we thank you for your service in that capacity and appreciate that you are continuing service to the panel and to the state as a member. And I want to welcome Melissa Schoenberger to the Children's Cabinet. We were fortunate to be able to hire her several months ago to serve as our systems specialist. You will see Melissa in a variety of other organizational meetings, task forces, committees, all of those groups representing the Children's Cabinet, which I think is a new dimension that we're bringing to the work of the panel is somebody, like all of you probably have a seat elsewhere in different roles. Melissa is across the system, probably in enough other meeting rooms and spaces that the coordination of effort, I think, will be there will be benefit and value to Melissa's leadership. So we appreciate that she is stepping into this role. For the Children's Cabinet and for the early childhood ecosystem, this year represents a year of change. We are evolving, and I know there are already many questions, and that will continue. Most of you probably are keenly aware that the legislature passed House Bill 2045 to the governor, and it was signed into law and became effective July 1st of this year, 2025. It creates the Office of Early Childhood and kicks off a year of planning that began July 1, will culminate July 1, 2026. So less than a year from now, we are supposed to have transferred a number of different programs. I think I have seen 20 as the number. Some may be grants that are coming to the end of their lifespan, but we are unifying a number of different programs and services in one agency, the Office of Early Childhood, to better coordinate the delivery models and leverage funding as effectively as we as a state can make that happen. So the office will bring movement of the Child Care Development Block Grant Fund will shift from DCF into the office. That is the child care subsidy that families receive. That is child care licensing, which currently is housed at KDHE. That is quality improvement, which lives in multiple different areas with outside partners. So all of the functions and programs that are supported with that block grant funding move into the office. The Kansas Children's Cabinet will move and merge into the Office of Early Childhood as an organization. Our current framework is an MOU that is housed at, we're in agreement with KSDE. They serve an administrative role for us and are the parent state agency, so to speak. But that will change. We'll shift into the office as well. We'll bring home visiting programs together and really, and parents as teachers from KSDE and healthy families. Like, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but it's a wide variety of programs coming together. So it will take a lot of planning. It's a logistics project. How do you pick up a federal funding stream or a state funding stream and move that funding from one state agency to another? That's budget mechanics, that's approvals and waivers and all sorts of steps. It's also the logistics of how are the IT functions or legal functions or all of those back office types of things going to be structured and set up for smooth delivery, all without ever disrupting service to the families and providers that are depending on us to keep things moving. So this project as set up, the process set up in the bill will be led by a planning director. The governor is in charge of hiring that planning director. There has been a process in place, a sequence of interviews happening, and we await the announcement of how they've decided to set up the planning team. There will be a core team that has already been named. It involves secretary level leadership from the agencies affected, and a couple key types of technical personnel. So the head of the Office of Information Technology Services, we will have Division of Budget, we will have Department of Administration, all of the relevant state entities that need to be at the table. The leadership team has been named. So we stand ready to roll up sleeves and get to work. And I think all of us, just to reassure you, each of the affected agencies has already had queries, give us, the governor's office collected key concerns and questions from each agency so that they could begin to develop the hierarchy, the prioritization of the work that needs to happen. So we will update as relevant, as allowable. We will bring updates, either myself or through Melissa. We will make sure this panel is kept up to date, and there's a role for you all in the year ahead to help advise and address different facets of this process. Think of it in the corporate world, this would be the process of a corporate merger. There's a lot of technical administrative work, but there's also program level, policy level decision making that undoubtedly will have to happen, and stakeholder input will be terribly important. So I'm going to stop there. I appreciate all of you. Melissa, I'll turn it back to you, and I will see you all here and there as appropriate.
Thank you, Melissa. I really echo Melissa's sentiments when I say evolving, because it really is going to be an evolution over the next year. And I think we can all appreciate when you say the mental image or the visual of corporate merger, like that really solidified it to me. So really appreciate those words as we move forward. And today, as we shared with you, today's really a panel purpose. Melissa shared the 3,000-foot view from the sky of the panel purpose. And we're really going to dig in deep a little bit, since half of our panel is new, to including myself. So just trying to make sure that we all move forward with a common understanding of why we're here today. I promise today, if anybody knows me, I'm going to do a lot of talking today at you, but I prefer to talk with you. And so this will be the last meeting that you will hear more of me than I will of you. So that is my promise to you. And I don't like hearing my own voice. So probably the last time I will do this much speaking in one of our panel meetings. So that being said, let's just really dig into the purpose of why we're all here today. So I'm a very visual person, and everybody put together an application. And Lindsay was kind enough to compile that in a way that was really just so thought-provoking to me. And everybody had to put, why did you want to be here today? What do you want to focus in on? And so over this last few weeks, I've been putting this into a word cloud, like everybody's statements, and wanting to see what would bubble up to the surface and why we were all here today. So, and some of you were a little short and brief, and some of you were really long, which I appreciate. And you all had the same intent. But this is why we're all here today. And these are your words. These are not mine. And this is what you really want to focus in on. And I think what is most telling is our biggest word that rose to the top was collaboration. And when I see the wide breadth of agencies that are here today, and that when you align with the blueprint that we have for Kansas, and we look at quality, I am just amazed at the words that bubbled up. And I'm not shocked that the biggest word that you all identified with was collaboration. Is there anything that catches your attention through this word cloud that you were shocked at, or like re-solidified why you were here? I'm going to pause, take not an uncomfortable pause, but a 30-second pause to see if anybody wants to come off mute and has any reaction to anything that you see today that came up.
One of the words, this is Larry with Growing Futures Early Education. One of the words that stands out to me very prominently is just the retention. Understanding that across not just the landscape for Kansas, but across the nation, early education has taken a devastating hit since COVID and then now out of COVID. And the pay gap and the discrepancies that exist are really an area where I know we need to continue to work on. So it's the recruitment and retention and what that looks like. So I think that's definitely an issue that really stands out to me. Understanding that, in our metro, we've had 6 early education places closed in the last year, 4 here very recently in May with our Head Start programs and through the YMCA. And it wasn't funding where, folks typically want to put it, just given our current environment. It was actually, people power or lack thereof people power. And so that one stands out to me heavily.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate those words and really helps us focus in on our journey of where we want to go. Christina, I see your hand is up. And then just a reminder, just as Larry follow through, make sure you introduce yourself and when you come off mute.
This is Christina with Salina Area United Way. What stands out to me is how all of these words are intertwined. Like there's so many of them that you can't fix one without fixing another. And so just how many avenues come together to make this a successful area to focus on is that all of them have to be worked on equally.
I appreciate that comment, Christina, because, if you play around in word clouds, you can do lots of visuals. And I specifically chose the circle because it's all revolving, right? It's all a juggle and it all goes together in such a way. So it was very intentional with the visual that I used, and I appreciate that because you're right. We can't solve one issue without then having that domino effect. And it's so very integral. So appreciate that. We are going to keep revisiting our word cloud through meetings to make sure that we have a focus. And again, a visual for me is very important. So I see where I'm going. And I constantly have that reminder. And now I have this actually as my backdrop on my laptop. And I have it placed above my desk here. So we'll keep using that. And what I love the most, they're your words, not mine, not Melissa's, not the cat's. They're truly the words of the of you panelists. Sarah.
Yeah, I just want to thank Larry. He said the word metro, and I just noticed in the word cloud that there isn't the word metro or urban or rural. And it's really great to see that we are all here to collaborate and work together to serve every child, no matter their geographical location. So that's something that you don't see very often in the worlds that we live in. It's often split rural and urban, and that's not the case here, and it's refreshing.
Thank you, Sarah. Love that, because you're right. It's all about Kansas and Kansans. Lindsay, if you would go to the next slide. So the panel function, again, welcoming 44 panel members to our 2025-2026 slate. We have 24 returning and 20 new members. So we are a mixed group, which I think is great. And we have those who have been here from the very beginning. So really looking and leaning on our continuing panelist members, but then welcoming those that are new and with ideas that will hopefully push envelopes. But as Melissa shared in her introduction, the panel serves as an advisory council through an executive order. So there is definite structure to the panel. And through that executive order, there is some direction that states who must be on the panel. But then through that structure and that, the wide breadth of the early child ecosystem in our states, we are able to then open the panel up to others through an application process and really look at where do we have gaps? Who do we need to make sure is served? Are we representing all Kansans in our state? And are we representing all functions in the early childhood system? We may tend to go and think about childcare licensing, but we have home visitors on our system. We have Head Start. We have those who serve children in the mental health sector on our panel. So it's a wide range, and really wanting to make sure that we are hitting all components of our ecosystem. And then we're going to challenge you guys. We want you to help us identify and act to challenges within the ECE system. And we may bring areas to you, but we really want it to be areas that you also identify and making sure that that we are hitting the whole gamut of challenges within our state, and also celebrating the success, because we're not just gonna spend like, oh, everything is not going in the direction that we hope, because I would say there is so much to celebrate within our ecosystem every given day. We also have a work group structure that we're going to talk about. A lot of your conversation, we will make sure that we give an opportunity that your interests are valued through the work group structure, and that things that interest you as panelists, that we're honoring, that making sure that we have that work group structure and time for you to have more specific conversations as we move forward. And then we wanted to strengthen local and state connections. Again, as you look at the panelists that we in this year and in previous years, we have those who represent state agencies, and then we have those who are more our boots on the ground, working in specific geographic areas in local areas. And then what we really hope is to strengthen those connections and learn from each other, and maybe, especially with lessons learned from local work, that might be a pilot, and then that we could move that work forward at a state level. So again, that last piece that strengthens local and state connections is really something that personally, as somebody who lives in Western Kansas and started at a local level, really hopes to see move forward now at a state position. But those are the really core 5 functions of the panel that we want to see moving forward, and making sure that we are hitting throughout our work over the next year. Lindsay, if you can move to the next slide. I really wanted to take a minute with so many new panel members and talk about the infrastructure in the state of Kansas, and specifically the early childhood governance structure. I feel very fortunate to work in a state that values early childhood and has such a robust structure. If you are new to the panel and you've never seen the structure, really wanted to make sure that we spend some time looking at it this morning. And of course, put the big red star where you sit as panelists today in the Early Childhood Recommendations panel. Of course, we have the governor at top, and then we have the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, and then we have the All In for Kansas leadership team, otherwise known as our state directors. We have some of our state directors participating today. Melissa Rooker, Michelle Adams, from their agencies and Lens support the state directors team. And then, of course, we have the Early Childhood Recommendations panel. But underneath the Early Childhood Recommendations panel, we have a very, very integral system of groups that are very focused in their lens and do amazing work within their own structure. So we have the state ICC, the Interagency Coordinating Council. We have the Systems Improvement Team housed within the Child Care Licensing. We have the State Home Visiting Leadership Team. We have our Workforce Development. We have our Maternal Child Health, our Family First, and our Family Leadership Team. As Melissa alluded to, as a full-time cabinet staff, I get to the honor of participating on all of, if not almost all of those work groups. And my role within that is to really listen and learn, and then move what I hope to see is, information up to the panel and vice versa. Because not everything that bubbles up in our panel is actually our work. Our job as the Early Childhood Recommendations panel, again, is to listen and learn and then know when to move things down. And there is some really good examples of some recommendations that I heard in June that, really immediately, due to my my many years of working within the child care licensing program and with multiple systems, I'm like, oh, that's really needs to go back down to the systems improvement team for them to tackle. And maybe this needs to move down to the workforce development advisory group, and then let them sit on it and really challenge their work groups to understand the questions that maybe the panel put forth and then move that back up to the panel. So what's really missing in this visual is I love the lines, but there really should be a two-way arrows going back and forth between the recommendations panel and all of the work groups, because they're ongoing conversations. And really hope that we see more of that over the next year, of the panel not always having so much ownership for work, and then not always thinking, as Melissa shared, things need to move up to the state directors, but there's just as much value in work within the panel and the relationship that we'll have with those work groups underneath. And I know several of you sit on some of those work groups, and so really hope that that is an exciting aspect for you moving forward, because really it is a cohesive approach with this, the way the structure is set up in Kansas, and really wanting to see that move forward. Okay, Lindsay, if you can move to the next slide, please. Just a reminder that we are, and now we're getting into some of the more technical aspect. And I say technical also kind of dry content, but really have to go over just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Reminding that we're governed by the Kansas Opens Meeting Act. And if anybody has a desire, you can go look at the FAQ on the AG's website to learn more of what that looks like. But we will make sure that Lindsay and I will always make sure moving forward that we are meeting the requirements of the Kansas Open Meetings Act, so we don't get in trouble. And if we can move to the next one. Okay, this is really what I wanted to get into and talk about, is the the purpose, role, norms, and procedures document that Lindsay emailed out to everybody yesterday, and really wanted to make sure that we have time to discuss that. And if there's any, this is a living document, as you will see that there have been. This is the third time this document was updated. So I appreciate when you have a work group that looks at their norms and really the culture of the way they do their work to make sure it is capturing what we intend, and that it makes sense to you of why you are a part of this system. So there were really three takeaways from this document that were updates. More specifically, the chair role, and making sure, since it's a full-time job. And again, another shout out for Cornelia, who served as our panel chair for the last 3 years, because this was not her day-to-day job. She really did a great service to their recommendations panel by supporting the work, but it is part of my position description and it is part of my day-to-day job. So I will be spending some more time within the work groups and really, as a sounding board, as a, hey, what information are you guys missing? How can we bring in anything that can move your work forward if there is gaps, or if you guys have questions? So we went ahead and added that to our document today that we're going over, so that there was a defined role, so that you really understood and had that support, and felt supported moving forward. And we defined some of the work group and the work within those groups, just a little bit to make it clearer to you guys when you're moving forward any recommendations. We will have expectations that you will use a standard format of taking notes, so that we are again in compliance with the open records and with the meetings, our Kansas Open Meetings Act, to make sure that if anybody asks, what is happening when the groups go into their closed meetings, what that looks like, and we have the documentation that serves that. And then when I'm not joining your work group, I'm able to then review that documentation if there's questions that I may have. We do ask, and we're going to be a little bit more, I don't want to say formal, but that there's just a regular cadence to those recommendations, that instead of just once, at the end, we get to hear this great summary of what your work groups are doing. You all, I had goosebumps listening to your June presentations, that we want to share that a little bit earlier with your panelists that may not be in that work group. So we're gonna ask the work groups to give some regular updates, and then we're gonna ask for feedback before we see any recommendations, because recommendations really are a accumulation of all of your work, and there should be formal feedback, and then we should have some voting that surrounds that formal feedback before any type of recommendation moves forward to the cabinet board. Other components that I think is just amazing about being a part of this panel with this document is that there's transparency and accountability. I love being a part of a group that is transparent, especially for those that are listening to our meetings. I want them to feel as much a part of this group as the panelists that are here. And so I appreciate that for the last 5 years that you have had a document that really speaks to that transparency, because we really do work for the system and on behalf of them. And so making sure that we have that in there. And then just making sure that there are some, some regular rules about attendance, making sure that we're being mindful of being good stewards of everybody's time, and that we follow the rules for attendance and actions. And so really, I'm gonna pause here and see if there is any discussion. And more than happy to pull any of this document on screen for everybody to look at and discuss. But before we really move into adopting it, I want to make sure everybody is comfortable with this, and if there's any discussion or any updates and changes anybody would like to the document. So I'm going to pause, and then if anybody wants to raise their hand, we can make sure that you come off screen. Okay, I feel like I have had a significant, not making it too awkward, to make sure that we have a long drawn out pause, and request a motion to adopt this updated version of our purpose and role.
This is Tammy Benham from Southeast Kansas Library System. I make a motion that we adopt the updated purpose and roles of the panel.
And may I have a second?
This is Kathy Gray. I second that motion.
Okay, and if we could have a thumbs up for a yes on that procedure. And okay, and a same sign for no. Okay, well, we have formally adopted those procedures, and I appreciate everybody and taking time to review those, and making sure that everybody's committed to moving forward with those. Brenda, your hand is still up.
Yeah, I just had a question. It wasn't regarding a revision. Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, but it was more around the details of the work groups and recommendations, just clarification. So that's why I didn't jump in before we voted. The work groups, having been a part of them, when we meet between meetings, those meetings are also to be recorded in these notes as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we will give you just a really, it's very similar to what you've had in the past to make notes and all of that. We've just fine-tuned it a little bit to add some more details to make sure that that when we record what is going on in your meetings, or when you guys record, that those details are clear in understanding what you guys meant on.
Okay. So we'll have a template, a new template that we're to be using for all meetings, regardless of when they occur.
Yes. And then you'll
Okay.
store them in the hub that Lindsay will go over here later on in our presentation.
Okay. And then a second question about this time about the recommendations. I believe that we need to now submit them to the chair. Can you give us an idea of the timeline? Because I know sometimes we need to work backwards from, like have a draft ready by here so we can get feedback by here so we can, implement the recommendations. And so when it gets maybe closer, or at some point, if we could get an expected turnaround time, when can we expect to get feedback? How far out should we be working on recommendations so that they can be formally presented at next June's meeting?
Okay. I appreciate that, Brenda. And as we move forward in our meetings, I think some of that might just happen naturally. And I do want to acknowledge, though, understanding a timeline. I'm pretty good about, I would say within 48 hours, 72, just to make sure if there's that, if I needed to review that, or I had questions. But yes, it will be a very, there won't be a long pause. Okay, so as we move forward, we're just, especially for new panel members, we just wanted to go over just some regular rules of the meetings and expectations. So Lindsay, if you can move to the next slide. I'm just reminding for our voting procedures, we need 2/3 of members present to approve, and that's actually in Article 5, which was an update because it used to be in Article 4. So if you're looking for that in your document, that has been moved. I have went back several years and note that usually this group comes to a very decent consensus pretty quickly, but I welcome you to challenge the system. I always say we're moving forward and getting somewhere when everybody gets a little uncomfortable. So I don't expect everybody to agree. I expect this group to have questions and in my previous role serving as the child care licensing director over field services, I knew we were getting somewhere when definitely interacting with licensing specialists when things would get uncomfortable, because that's when you realize you're moving forward and maybe breaking down a barrier. And in my context, it was licensing regulations. And so I really enjoy those conversations because I think then that's when we come out of the other side with a better product. So welcome discourse, welcome dissent, and hope that as we move forward, we get a little uncomfortable because that's really, again, as I said, it's when we do our best work. Lindsay, if you can get to the others. Panel recommendations. So to your point, Brenda, we will look at adding and making sure that we have really good expectations when you guys do move forward a recommendation, and that the recommendation fits with the correct work that we're going around through, especially with the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan and our blueprint. And we will dive into those a little bit deeper here in a minute. And then what we do want to remind everybody, I know we are definitely the recommendations panel. So there might be a need to like, hey, we need to move something forward because we are a recommendations panel. But we get just as much value to the system by collaborating, by having the conversations, having open dialogue, by submitting things that moving forward ideas for the All In for Kansas websites that just as much as a formal recommendation. So, and a recommendation may move some of the work back down to the other work groups in our structure. So please be mindful that it doesn't always come forward as a formal recommendation, but that the recommendation is continuously moving the work around the loop. Lindsay and I had a conversation and I loved her visual of goes down, it goes up, and it goes sideways. So work is moving all over the ecosystem. So really wanting to hopefully free you when you guys are working in your work groups to have those really robust, uncomfortable conversations. And I think that will really benefit the whole system. Lindsay, if you go to the next slide, and really it's about system collaboration. So later on at the end of our meeting, we're going to leave you with a final thought of an assignment and thinking about what do you want to hear over the next year? Who are you missing? So I listened because I've done my homework and really listened to last your kickoff meeting last year. And Brenda, you made a really great comment of you wanted to hear more about home visiting. and what they're doing in the early child ecosystem. And I don't know if that was answered for you last year. And so, if those are things that and you really want to hear from, we have connections because we have Holly Fry from KDHE, who is also a part of the state leadership, and in her own right is moving forward the home visiting work. So those are examples of that collaboration within our own panel and with any outside work that we can see. But really wanting to hear from you guys if what you want to hear about. And one of the things that we had a recommendation, and we take recommendations as your chair, very it's very personal to me to make sure I'm meeting all of your needs, was to have key takeaways. That you get really good information each panel meeting, but sometimes you don't know what to do with that information. And so what we're really going to do in our notes moving forward is at least give you 3 key takeaways that you can use in your own work to share information within your own network and in your own agency, and making sure that you're not just getting talked to, but that information can be used in a really meaningful way. And so each meeting will have key takeaways in the notes that we hope that you find useful moving forward. But really want you to think about what you need and who you want to hear from over the next year. And, and I'm really interested, Brenda, in your assignments, know if you did get the home visitor information that you desired and what can we do to fill that gap. Okay, so now we're going to dig into the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan and how they support your work groups. I live and breathe by the strategic plan. It's right here on my desk, and I am constantly moving back and forth in between it. And I think it's such a great document that if you're a new panel member and you are not familiar, we will make sure that you get a link. And if you would like a hard copy mailed to you, we will also make sure that you get a hard copy mailed to you, because I'm very old school and probably dating myself. I like to be able to write and put sticky notes and use my strategic plan in that manner. But recognize that we do have those on board who love the electronic version and do the exact same thing. But Lindsay, if you go forward, really wanting to make sure that we have some foundation of why we're here, not just as panel members, but why you're here doing the work that you do every day. And this is, really basic in the blueprint of the All In for Kansas Kids blueprint. And it's such a simple statement, right? Every child thrives. Just very, very simple in a way that I believe everybody can rally around. But we all recognize that's still something that we have to work at. And we have to make sure that we are doing our best for our Kansas little ones. And that their basic needs are being met and they have access to quality early childhood opportunities. And that may look very different from the lens that everybody's coming from in their own work group or their own setting and agency, and that they're ready to succeed in kindergarten and beyond. And the blueprint really has 3 bucket areas: healthy development, strong families, and early learning. And I was very intentional in this, and when I put this slide together, because those are the building blocks, and they are referred to building blocks in the blueprint. And that's making sure that children have access to comprehensive health and developmental services, that families are stronger when their basic needs are met, and that Kansas children are prepared for kindergarten. I'm a mom of a soon-to-be 23-year-old, but it doesn't matter that she is 23. I still want these things, and I still took pride in knowing that these things were met when she was in her early childhood days. But I will, she's not listening to this. I will digress and say a minute that sometimes a soon-to-be 23-year-old feels like you have maybe a preschooler again, because they never stop being needy, and they're still evolving and needing things. So I feel like my life lessons in my early childhood work is still applying that to adult children, and see a couple of you smiling and laughing, and because you feel it, everybody understands that. So it's a continuous work, and we all want the best in the system of for all of our children and grandchildren, and just our neighbors. I have 3 little girls that live next to me under the age of 5, and still want everything and think about, are they thriving in their development? So if we can move to the next slide, because that's the blueprint, then the blueprint is really those foundational, like I said, blocks moving into our strategic plan. The strategic plan evolved from the 2024 needs assessment. So we just didn't throw this out there and say, hey, this is what we think that Kansans need. It was very intentional of doing the work of what do they need to then moving forward the strategic plan. And there are 3 main pillars: looking at our ecosystem, our workforce, which Larry spoke to very eloquently earlier about retention, and then children and families, making again sure their basic needs are met. And as a former, spending, again, going to date myself, celebrated 24 years of serving Kansas as a state employee. This past April, it's been my pleasure to be in multiple sectors of community coalition building, serving in the child care licensing program, and also getting my feet wet in health promotion, and really looking at what communities need. That I could see myself in all of these pillars personally, and as you should, in making sure, because it was, when you look at the strategic plan, you should recognize where you are in each system. So, for example, in the ecosystem, we spent KDHE in the child care licensing world spent the last 2 years making sure that they were using good data to improve their child care licensing regulations, modernizing them, removing barriers. And so that was very much in the ecosystem. And in the workforce, we have our friends at Casito launching CAPE, which is a statewide system that all of us are invested in, and making sure. And then we have, within our children's and families, we have our home visiting program, and really excited about their upcoming state conference, which is now, we have 7 working models in the state of home visiting, and that we're, Holly and her leadership team have been working on putting together a statewide conference, bringing all of those models together, because really they have one common purpose: is serving families. And the families don't care what model they're going to. They just care that they're getting a home visitor coming to their house to support them. And so really, as we look at the strategic plan and overview, really your assignment is to look at the work that you're going to be doing over the next year, and identifying where you are in that, because we are monitoring the strategic plan, and we are looking at how we're moving forward, so that when we do our next needs assessment, we can definitely say we have covered this. Like we met this action. We move forward, and this is what we did to better serve Kansans, and then making sure that the data is there. Also to say this is a gap. This is what we're missing. And this is the role of the panel too, is also to identify those gaps in our ecosystem. Lindsay, if you can move forward. This is and when I look at my strategic plan, this is my favorite page. Again, if I haven't said it multiple times this morning, I am a visual person, and I love seeing where we sit in where I sit within the ecosystem and where I've sat in multiple areas. And so really want you to keep that in mind, because we might be very driven to look in what's our comfort zone, and really want you to expand looking out in the panelists and the ecosystem that we have brought forward, to make sure that we're not just in our little comfort zone, that we're really looking across the sectors and making sure we're bridging all of those natural opportunities within this group. Very excited as I'm going through the panel membership. I'm a book nerd, and so really excited that we have a librarian being represented in the panel. And I want to say this is the first time, and so really stretching out our membership and in this ecosystem, and really thinking about, as a library, where they sit within crisis services. Maybe there's information there that we need. And who hasn't had a parent of a young child who's just taken the child to the library to say, let's just get out of our house and let's just look at all of the support services our libraries across the states offer. So that's an example through our ecosystem that I welcome new membership, and really want us to challenge and think about, what are we missing in this visual. And I'm so excited to have you, Tammy, in our new our panel moving forward. But love the visual, and wanting to make sure that we use that also as our goalpost, of making sure that we are getting to where we have. And is there somebody missing in the ecosystem that we should add the next time we move forward our strategic plan? Lindsay, if you can move forward. So next time we meet, we're going to have what I like to call speed dating. And we're going to ask for a member of or a volunteer who feels really passionate about the work group that they've identified already moving forward. But what's great about every panel year, you get to pick a new work group. You don't have to stay in the same work group that you have stayed within. I do know that there's going to be those that are passionate about it. And again, we'd ask that you email myself or Lindsay, and we will ask you to be the speed dater to really sell that work group. But as we went through the June meeting notes, and I, watched it and really reviewed it again, we really did some assumptions moving forward, that the family-friendly workplaces was going to be ongoing, because there's still work to be done. The workforce mental health supports very much shared that they had work to keep moving forward. The targeted journey recruitment, especially after looking at our word cloud and looking at the word retention so loud, that would be ongoing. And then the system progress communications was going to be ongoing. When we looked at the exit interview work group, and your final recommendation to the Cape Governance Board, which they will be taking up your recommendation and looking at that at their upcoming meeting, we felt like that work was complete, and could segue into what we really hoped to look at as a new work group, is the ecosystem. As Melissa Rooker alluded to this morning, a little, just an hour ago, that there will be some opportunities and some really using the panel and this work group as a sounding board to the evolution of the Office of Early Childhood, and really looking at that we recognized that we were missing some of those, work group that really tackled something that was more driven by the system. It's only been, honestly, it's been 8 weeks that I have been at the children's cabinets. So really, and they have a really deep portfolio. And I have spent a lot of time really getting to know the well-being side of the cabinet work. And I think you guys have, any returning members recognize some of their work because you were used as a sounding board when they were asking for feedback from the well-being pathway that we hope to launch this fall. And it's going to be an amazing tool for communities. But I want to bring in more of that systems work of the well-being pathway and understanding that because it's very much embedded in the state plan. When you look at some of the actions, loved the framing of the strengths base of our state plan. And when we talk about some of that well-being work, like the mandated supporter versus the mandated reporter, that's much embedded in our state plan. Really hopeful to get some of that. So again, and if the exit interview group feels like that is not where they want to see their journey, we can either move forward with 5 work groups, or we can move forward with the formation of 6. So we will talk more about that. If you feel passionate one way or the other as a part of that exit interview group, please reach out to Lindsay and I, and we can discuss that. But the next month, again, the ask is that we need a volunteer from what we're proposing is the 5 work groups moving forward. And we will have you guys share why we should have any of our 20 new participants join your work group, and what is important to you in that work group. Okay, so I'm going to pause from talking and hand it over to Lindsay, who's going to give a brief overview of our SharePoint Hub that you will be very familiar with moving forward.
Morning, everyone. Lindsay O'Ryan here. I'm a research project manager at the Center for Public Partnerships and Research. Many of you, all of you have seen emails from me, and many of you hopefully are familiar from past panel meetings where I have helped support, and I'm here to help support Melissa Schoenberger as the chair and all of you as panel members. So one resource that I am going to switch our screen share to take a quick look at, you will bear with me, is our panel SharePoint hub. So this is just a SharePoint site that we have built out. And it is a foundation for a collaboration space for all of you. This is really intended to be a space that meets your needs. So over the last couple of years, I've tried to make sure to put things there and create spaces that I think fit your needs, but you are always welcome to reach out and say, oh, hey, it would be really helpful if we had this, or this is something that would be nice for our work group or a need that we might have. Do you have any ideas? So I want to make sure that I am doing my best to help have the space meet all of your needs as you collaborate as a large group and in your work groups throughout the year. So everyone should have access to this. I usually include it in pretty much every email I send you, so you have a quick reminder link there. The homepage has just some news and updates there. So I'll do my best to get a summary from each meeting posted. So we'll make sure to get a summary from this meeting posted that'll have quick links to all your meeting materials, the recording, anything else that stands out from this meeting. I'll make sure to add in the key takeaways that our chair will help identify so that you'll have quick access to those as well. So if you ever are thinking like, oh, what meeting did we talk about this? Or I remember something coming up, this is a great place to go back to so you don't have to search through tons and tons of emails to find links to things, you can always come back to this central resource. We'll also post other random news and information here. And if you have something you'd like me to share with the panel that might be a link or a recording or an event, I can create a little news piece here and drop it on this page so that panel members can have easy access to that. This is a website, but it's internal to you all. So I know some of you have worked through access issues with me pretty extensively. For some reason, every now and then it likes to be difficult. If you don't have access to reach out, but just know that this is a space where it's really internal to your group. If we scroll down a little, I've got some quick links here. So the Children's Cabinet website, the All In for Kansas Kids website, which is a great resource for communities and workforce and family all across the state. The Kansas Open Forum submission form. This is also on the Children's Cabinet website, but just a reminder here in case you connect with someone as a panel member who might want to share something. This is a quick place for you to grab that link to share with someone else as needed. If you ever are wanting to add something to the agenda or send something that you want added to this website, I have a link to a form where you can say, oh, hey, Lindsay and Melissa, would really love to talk about this, or could you get this added to the panel SharePoint, or here's an event I want to help promote that might be important for other panel members to be aware of. It's just a quick and easy way to do that. You can always send an email also, but that's available if that's helpful to you. Our Children's Cabinet YouTube is where all of these meetings are live streamed, as well as the Children's Cabinet meetings, and it holds other meeting recordings, those sort of things. So that's a quick link. Some of our work groups over this past couple of years have utilized the All In for Kansas Kids website to share information out to the system. So we have a submission process and a form. So if you as an individual representing your organization or somewhere in the state, or if you as a panel member, as a part of your work group, have content or updates or changes or suggestions for that website, there is a link to talk you through that process to sort of submit that information. So some of our work groups are very familiar with this because they've utilized this as a way to have output of the work that they've done to gather, collect information that they want to make sure is shared out with the system, but quick link there. Melissa talked through our early childhood governance chart, so quick link and reminder there. And then our family engagement stipend policy, which is now incorporated into the purpose, roles, norms, and procedures document. That's also linked as well. I have quick links at the bottom for all the meetings. So if you are ever like, oh gosh, for some reason my calendar isn't working, I can't find the link, or I don't see it in the email, you can always come here and I have all the Zoom links added for all of our meetings, and that'll update every month to be the current month at the bottom. They're all in here, so you can always access the panel meeting through this website as well. This is almost everything. I'm almost finished. Just a quick reminder that we have a documents link over here on the side. And so we'll put all of your panel meeting materials here, agenda, the slides after every meeting, any other resource documents that are shared. We'll make sure to add that to this space here. And then there is a work group folder where we'll make sure that you have a folder for shared resources and collaboration across your work groups. So we'll make sure to get this updated as that progresses this year, but you can add your meeting notes here, and Melissa, as well as all of the other panel members, will have access to that. So it's a great place to share, store, and collaborate with documents. And if you're ever wanting a little bit more of a collaborative space that might have comments or information that is shared on a page that looks more like a mini web page, again, reach out and I would love to work on trying to help create that with you if you have ideas. One quick reminder, as I go back to documents, we do have a panel member bio document that we update every year. So my colleague, Brianna Houston, and I, but mostly Brianna, I don't want to take credit, have been working to get a draft of this set up for all of you for this year. So this is the past panel member year, but we've been working from from your application materials to get a draft of this set up. And we're going to send out a link for you to send us any edits that you might have to your title or name or bio that you shared with us in your application materials, and to give us a photo that we can add. So this will go up on the website. It will also be available to all of you, but everyone else in the system, if they're wanting to know who's on the panel, what are, other than just a name, a little bit more about you. So keep an eye out for that. I think that is everything for this page. Any questions about the hub before I exit out of this? Okay. One quick thing as I'm looking back that I want to make sure to remind everyone, if you go to the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund website, there's a couple of other things for the system communication that I want to share with you. So at the bottom of the Children's Cabinet website, if you don't already receive the weekly All In for Kansas Kids email newsletter, you can fill out your information here really quickly and get added to receive that. Putting a plug in, if you have information that you would like shared out on the All In for Kansas Kids weekly email newsletter, you can reach out to me and I will help pass that along to the team that puts that together. So that's both available to you as a resource to help gather and keep tab on information, but also it's a resource for you to utilize if you're wanting to make sure that information gets shared out. The other thing I'll put a plug in for is under events. Maybe. Well, this is not quite what I want. Oh, okay. Under All In for Kansas Kids, there is the monthly webinars. So there is an All In for Kansas Kids monthly webinar. It usually hits at about the second week of every month on a Wednesday at noon. These are all recorded. You can find links and recordings to these both on the Children's Cabinet website, but on the Children's Cabinet YouTube. But you can sign up. Oh, here we go. Register to join all 2025 webinars. So there's a link right here so that you can add that to your calendar, get registered, and have a Zoom link to join that. So you can attend those live, you can interact, you can ask questions, and it is an interactive space. It's not only one-way communication. So just wanting to make sure that you know about those resources as well. If you get past this meeting, you're like, wait, what did you say? Where was that link? You can reach out to me at any point and I will help get that connected for you. So let me get back to our PowerPoint. That is kind of the basics that I wanted to share. Melissa, if you can think of anything I missed or if anyone has questions, I'm available now, but also you can reach out anytime if you need help.
And we'll have a test on this next time. We're going to let one of you guys demonstrate and see where everything's at and move forward. I'm just joking. I'm still learning the whole where everything is set up. Lindsay is keeping me so organized. It's I just love it. I would be lost without Lindsay. Okay, we're close to our 10:30 mark, so we're just gonna keep moving forward. I wanted to share some updates. We were asked by our friends at Department of Education to share that there is a feedback survey on the ASQ, specifically SE2-2. So you will have this in your notes. If you are familiar utilizing the ASQ, please take that short survey, Amanda, and would definitely appreciate that. Wanted to remind everybody, if you are getting the All In for Kansas Kids newsletter, you might have already seen the Kansas Home Visiting Conference is September 30th. They are asking for registration by July 31st. So we thought we would use this as another opportunity to push out that event. And I'm the recipient of several newsletters. If you're not receiving the DCF newsletter, giving Nikki and team a shout out here, the DCF newsletter is amazing. It has lots of really good information for families and their DCF events. And one of the pieces that I've really found intriguing was their Sunbucks that they're offering over this year, the 2025. It's a 121-time benefit per eligible child to help purchase groceries over the summer months. The eligibility's pretty pretty concrete. If families were eligible for free and reduced lunch, they would be eligible for the $10. And if they're receiving supports through other services through DCF, we put the link there. So through your own networks, if you want to share that information, another just great support services when you go back to the blueprint of that we're ensuring families have basic needs and thriving. Appreciate our partners at the Department for Children and Families for looking at opportunities to make sure families are getting their needs met over the summer months. And just loved how you coined that. DCF really worked hard. Great flyers, QR code. I'm a lover of QR codes. It's really easy to pass on and just access information. So hopefully you'll share that through your networks. If you want to move forward, Lindsay, we're going to let Megan Cluth. But before, as we get closer to our 10:30 time, I know we were going to do introductions, but we really wanted to spend, and I wasn't sure how much time we would be going over the documents and really level setting with our new panel members. Now, we were going to do introductions this meeting. We're going to hold those and move those to our next meeting so that we can still honor getting everybody out at 10:30. As you know, we know Fridays are precious and making sure that we're honoring that. So just knowing that we will move those and we can continue and spread those out over the next several meetings. So I will hand this over to Megan Cluth with some PDG updates. And
Good morning,
PDG,
everyone.
yeah,
Thanks for having me. As Melissa said, my name is Megan Cluth. I work for the University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research. Welcome to all the new panel members. I know for many of you, you've heard about PDG for years. For anybody who's like, what do those letters mean? PDG is the Preschool Development Grant. It is a federal funding source. Kansas has been fortunate to have several grants through PDG for the past several years, and it is a grant that's really specifically focused on early childhood systems building. So it covers a lot of different topics. In fact, we have 29 initiatives. So it's pretty broad, and so because of that, it's hard to track everything. And so I come monthly to share a little bit about what's going on with PDG. We are getting ready to wrap up in September our first year. The hope was that it would be a 3-year grant. Due to some congressional funding shifts, we are planning for a 2-year grant. So working with the grant through September 2026. So I will tell you a little bit about what's going on. And if you ever have questions or want to know about more about any of these specific initiatives, please let me know and I'm happy to connect you there. This is a highly collaborative grant. And so actually several of our partners in PDG are on the panel and always happy to bring them in to share more. So just a few kind of things to know in the coming months. We are super excited to host an early childhood mental health in-person convening on October 15th. It will be in Topeka. I'm hoping some people on the call have heard about this. If you have not, and it is piquing your interest, please let me know. We have not sent the invite out yet, but this we are seeing through PDG, there's a lot of work specifically around early childhood mental health, and I think there is just obviously, this is not a new topic, but there's just some momentum that feels like we should seize the opportunity and bring people together. And so this is kind of anybody that has some connection to early childhood mental health, which I would argue could and should be all of you in some way. But if this is bringing together people like from the mental health system who work in maternal child health, who maybe work more on the childcare side or home visiting side. So very much like a healthcare, very much like a mixed delivery system approach, and really coming together to say we are all seeing different needs and resources that we need to support the mental health needs of young children, their families, and the professionals who are serving them. And so it's intended to be like a starting point for a really collaborative conversation across the system. And the hope is that it's the starting point of the conversation and there's a lot more to come. So if that's at all interesting to you, let me know and I'm happy to connect you with the planning team so you get that invite. Also, Mandy was on our call and she and her team at Child Start will be hosting an employer summit in Wichita on August 15th. Lindsay will share the link for registration for this in the notes. But this is really about bringing employers together to understand like why does childcare impact them? We know that's a big issue for workforce in Kansas, is ensuring families can access childcare. And so how can employers support that? How can they get involved? So it's a space for them to really connect with their peers and learn more. And if anybody's interested in attending that or has partners in Wichita, please share the link. Then the childcare zones, I've shared a little bit about this in past meetings, but for those who are new, it's a funding opportunity led by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment around bringing at least 2 counties together around building childcare ecosystems. And so there was a first round of funding that went out this spring. There are currently 4 grantees doing this work. And then we have a second application due in late August. So we hosted an informational webinar yesterday. And the recording of that and other materials are going to be available on the allinforkansaskids.org. So if you are in communities having conversations around childcare, this is definitely something I would recommend you check out as a possible opportunity. Okay. I know I'm moving fast, so if anybody has questions after this, just let me know. Hopefully you've seen in the All In for Kansas Kids newsletter, there is some funding available through PDG for groups that are doing sort of like family engagement activities. So this might mean wanting families to complete surveys, wanting families to come to feedback sessions. We've had a lot of school districts and childcare providers doing back to school events that are like educational resource fairs for families. So these are funds specifically to compensate families for their time. We know it's critical to have family involvement, but we want to also recognize that we value people's time. And so there is a request form. So you could do this, or if you know other groups in your community, people have been very creative about like how they get family or like the types of engagement they want to have with families. So if you need ideas, let us know. There's a simple request form for that, and that's available now, and it will continue to be available for the coming months. So if you have something in the fall or winter, I would definitely recommend getting a request in sooner rather than later. And then last but not least, our partners at Thrive Allen County have been doing an initiative around helping childcare professionals access health insurance. I'm really proud to say through that initiative, we have some professionals in the state who are accessing health insurance for the first time in their lives, which I think is a really big deal. So they have both a person that can help with navigation if people are interested in learning more about the marketplace. They can actually like do a one-on-one call with them and kind of help people figure out like what might be a good fit for them and their family. And then there's also financial support. So people can, if they currently have health insurance or are trying to access health insurance, apply. This is for licensed childcare providers in the state. There's a little bit of preference given to family childcare providers, but certainly it's open to providers across early childhood settings. They are getting ready to launch that next round in August. And so the content's not up on All In for Kansas Kids just yet, but it will be before the next meeting. And we'll push this out in the newsletter as well. But it was, as you might imagine, there was a lot of interest in this last time. So I imagine there will be again, and definitely want to make sure we're spreading the word about this across the state because I know this is a big need. Are there any questions? I know that was a lot. Okay, well, thank you so much for the time. You'll see me here monthly. And again, as always, please reach out if we can ever help bring connections with PDG into the panel.
Okay, we're right at 10:30, so we're going to go ahead and move the introductions to our next meeting. And thank you, Megan, for joining us. I have regular check-ins with the zones work, and I can't wait for us to be able to share more in depth with the panel of what the communities are doing, and because they really exemplify the work that you are moving forward, and meeting communities and counties and people where they're at versus telling them where we think they should go. And so really love the autonomy of the zones work. I get very excited every time Megan talks about it. Our upcoming meeting will be there's a cabinet board meeting August 1st, and our recommendations panel, it will be August 15th. So hope to see everybody again. And I promise you, as I shared, this will be the last time that I will be spending so much time talking at you. We will be more, engaged. I love asking, asking somebody a question. So I'm that, if you took that college course and you had that professor who just called on the person who tried to sit in the back of the room, that's me. So we will make sure that everybody gets involved. And we will look forward to hearing from everybody as we continue to move forward over this next year. Have a great weekend and enjoy the warm, we're right in the heart of summer. And as you segue off, please know that you do have an assignment that we ask that everybody review the strategic plan. If you do not have access to and you would like a hard copy as a new member, please let Lindsay and I know, and then we can get you a copy. Really, as you're looking through that strategic plan and thinking about, Kansas as a whole, what do you want to focus on and prioritize over the next year? And who would you like to hear from? As we shared, Megan will come in monthly and give us updates on the preschool development grant. But any outside group besides being driven by us, we really want to make sure that we're hearing who you want to hear from. So we look forward to that. And again, enjoy your weekend and the sun, and have a great next 2 days off. And we are adjourned. Thank you guys for joining.